I'm going to show you how to play Restoration Druid in Cataclysm Classic. Everything you need to know, including rotation, talents, glyphs, and everything else, so that you can hit the ground running, starting off with what race to play. If you are going Alliance, I always say to go with Worgen for 2 reasons. Well, actually 3 reasons. First reason, they're the hot new class on the block and are really, really fun, and their racials are really good as well. Number 1 being Dark Flight. It is on a 2-minute cooldown, activating a 40% movement speed increase for 10 seconds. This is good in a huge range of different places. One could be getting out of something you're standing in, or getting from A to B on a certain boss or dungeon. And secondary is Viciousness, increasing our critical strike chance by 1%. If you're going for Horde, then I always say to go for Troll, and that is for one reason and one reason only, which is Berserking. A 3-minute cooldown racial, increasing your attack and casting speed by 20% for 10 seconds, and therefore it is like a mini Bloodlust. This is the stat priority you are going to want to follow on all of your gear and enchants and gems, etc. Number 1 being Intellect. In Cataclysm, they have changed it a bit, and Intellect is actually going to give you more spell power, it's going to give you a higher mana pool, and also some crit chance. The best way to get more Intellect is, of course, by getting a higher and higher eye level of gear. The second being Haste. This is first and foremost going to reduce the cast time of our spells. As a Restoration Druid, we're using a lot of HOTS or heal over time spells, and this is really, really efficient when synergized with more haste. There are also different breakpoints of haste for a Restoration Druid, and what I mean by this is, like I said, we use a lot of HOTS or heal over time spells. And let's say we use a healing spell that is a HOT, and it's going to heal 1000 over 10 seconds. If you have a lot more haste, there are certain breakpoints every sort of few hundred after about 700-900, somewhere around there, where basically you're going to get an extra tick. So rather than healing 1000 over 10 seconds, it's actually going to add another tick of healing in that 10 seconds. And there is a lot of breakpoints as we go up through haste. So haste and getting as much of it is really, really, really important. If we want to make it simple then, the first major breakpoint is going to be at 12.5% haste, where you're going to get an extra tick of your rejuvenation and your tranquility spells. While trying to get up to this percentage, we're also going to get an extra tick of our life bloom, and that's at about 5% haste, and also our wild growth, which is an AoE heal that heals over time, and that's at 7.1% haste. And it still basically just keeps going up from there. So just stack haste and you're going to be doing great. Then we have Mastery, a new stat that is firstly going to increase our overall healing, and secondary is that we're actually going to get a buff increasing our healing when we heal someone with a single target heal. So this lasts for 10 seconds, and if I use, say, Healing Touch on myself, a single target heal, you can see at the top right hand side of my screen, Harmony, and that is our heal, that is our Mastery heal. Periodic healing increased by 21%, and you can see that falls off. When I use a single target heal again, you can see I get that buff for 10 seconds, and that is our Mastery buff. So every 10 seconds, we want to make sure we're doing a direct heal to keep that buff up. As you can see here, we don't want to let it fall off, and you can use it to replenish it. So 5, 4, and you can see it's then going back up at 10 seconds. Keep this Harmony buff up at all times. That is our Mastery. If we read the tooltip for it, your direct healing is increased by X amount, and casting your direct healing spells grants you an additional 21% bonus to periodic healing for 10 seconds. Each point of mastery increases that bonus. So again, it's really, really important you're always using a direct or single target heal within every 10 seconds so that your heal over time spells do more healing. If any of this doesn't make sense, don't worry, I'm going to be going through the rotation in detail and making sure it's really digestible for you later in this video. After that, we have Spirit, and you may be thinking, well, hang on a minute, that's only out of combat. Well, actually, in Cataclysm, things have changed, and now it is a really good way of actually getting your mana regen in combat as well. I would say roughly for a druid, for a resto druid, you should try and go for about 2000 spirit. We don't need quite as much as some other healers. You can see here, I'm pretty much bizzed out with 359 gear, and I have 2145. So for Bastion of Twilight, if you are raiding, you're going to be in a really good spot once you are, fairly geared up. And as you can see here, it's going to increase mana regen per 5 seconds when not casting. Lastly, of course, we have Critical Strike, increasing your chance to deal more healing. Simple as that. And this is a general priority here that I would follow as a Restoration Druid. Now looking at talents, starting off, this is going to be the main build I would tell you to take for raiding specifically. I'm going to show you a few changes we're going to make to dungeon healing as well, so don't worry. Starting off, we've got Blessing of the Grove, increasing healing done by your rejuvenation. Natural Shapeshifter is going to increase the duration of your Tree of Life form, and that is a big cooldown that we're going to be using. We also have the Master Shapeshifting talent. When we're in Tree of Life, or just caster form, so like how we are now, it's going to increase our healing. Improved Rejuvenation, just increasing our healing of some spells. Naturalist, reducing the cast time of some of our spells. I'm going to be going over these talents in a more like kind of overview style so that we're not getting like right into the nitty gritty and overwhelming you with information, but I want you to know the kind of core concepts that we're getting in these talents. Heart of the Wild increases your intellect and therefore how much healing you do. We've got a great spell here, Nature Swiftness, more on that in the rotation part. Revitalize, when you periodically heal with your Rejuvenation or Life Bloom, you've got a 20% chance to instantly regenerate some mana. Can happen every now and again. In addition, you also grant replenishment when you cast or refresh Life Bloom. That's going to grant up to 10 party or raid members mana regen as well. So this is a great mana regen talent for you and your party or raid. Going on to this line, we've put 1 into Nature's Bounty, increasing the crit effect of our regrowth, and it's going to slightly reduce the cast time of our Nourish. Not massively important, but it is useful to have. Empowered Touch, increasing the direct healing done by our Healing Touch, Regrowth, and Nourish. That is our free direct healing spells, and grants those spells a 100% chance to refresh the duration of your Life Bloom. So by the way, we have this spell here, Life Bloom. We're generally keeping it up on the tank, and you can see here it's only got 5 seconds left. When I use Nourish or Healing Touch or Regrowth, it is going to refresh that Life Bloom on the target. So if you are using Life Bloom on the target, then you can use your direct healing spells to just make sure we're keeping that up. And you can only use Life Bloom on one target at a time. Malfurion's Gift, whenever you heal with Life Bloom, which we've just been speaking about, you have a 4% chance to cause Omen of Clarity. Omen of Clarity is this passive here. Your damage spells and attacks have a small chance to cause you to enter a clear casting state. The clear casting state reduces the mana, rage, or energy cost of your next spell, and healing spell by 100%. So basically, when that does proc, you will get a free spell. Nature's Cure empowers your Remove Corruption to also remove a magic effect from a friendly target. That's this spell here, Remove Corruption. Nullifies corrupting effects on your friendly target, removing 1 magic, 1 curse, and 1 poison effect. Really good at removing those effects on your fellow ally. Wild Growth, healing up to 5 party or raid members. Basically, this is a multi-target heal. We should be using it pretty much on cooldown. Prioritizes healing most injured party members, so it's quite efficient and clever. The amount healed is applied quickly and then slows down. We then have Effervescence. Your Swift Mend causes healing to basically sprout out an AoE heal beneath them. And that's from our Swift Mend. So if I use Rejuvenation on myself, that allows me to use Swift Mend. When I use Swift Mend, you can see this big green circle under me, and that is your Effervescence. So when you use Swift Mend, that's going to make this big AoE heal on the ground. You can see here it sprouts beneath the target, restoring health equal to the amount healed by your Swift Mend to free most injured allies. So generally try and use your Swift Mend on maybe the tank or where people are clustered up, so that you can get that Effervescence effect under them. Increases the healing done by your Life Bloom, expires by 15%, and causes your Rejuvenation spell to also instantly heal for 15% of the periodic effect. Just a nice boost to some healing there. Swift Rejuvenation, reducing the global cooldown of your Rejuvenation. And that basically, see when your Rejuvenation comes down, that is actually decreasing how quickly that little clock goes round to when you can use your next Rejuvenation, basically. That is the global cooldown. And lastly, Tree of Life, a big sexy cooldown I'll be talking about more in a minute. We've got a few other talents we can put in here. I'm putting 2 out of 2 into Critical Strike chance of spells in Nature's Mastery, 3 out of 3 into Moonglow, reducing the mana cost of your damage and healing spells, helping us with our mana. 3 out of 3 into Nature's Grace, you gain 15% haste after you cast Moonfire, Regrowth, or Insect Swarm. The main one there is Regrowth, of course, our single target spell. And 2 out of 2 into Genesis, increasing the healing done with your periodic spells and by Swift Mend. For the Glyphs, pretty straightforward. We've got Life Bloom, increasing the critical effect chance of it. Swiftmend, your Swiftmend ability no longer consumes a rejuvenation or regrowth from the target. So when we use a rejuvenation, that allows us to use Swiftmend. Normally, Swiftmend will absorb the healing effect on the target, so it would absorb this rejuvenation on myself. But with that glyph, it doesn't actually absorb it, it just does healing on top of it, which is a win-win. Lastly, for our prime glyph, we have the Glyph of Rejuvenation, increasing the healing done by our rejuvenation by 10%. On our major ones, I like to go with Thorns. It's just a utility one we can use. There's not that many amazing ones. Healing Touch, when you cast it, it reduces the cooldown on Nature's Swiftness. That's this one here. More on that in a minute. And Glyph of Rebirth, my favourite major glyph. Players resurrected by Rebirth will have 100% health, and therefore it's going to really reduce the chance that they're going to instantly die when you do Rebirth for them. That's your battle res that you can use in combat. For the minor ones, I like to use Unburdened Rebirth. It's a quality of life glyph where you don't have to use a reagent for your rebirth. Glyph of Dash, reducing the cooldown on dash, where you can go boom, and it's a speed increase spell. And Glyph of Mark of the Wild, reducing the mana cost of Mark of the Wild. Pretty simple there. So how is this all going to come together into an actual rotation then, and what spells are we going to be using? Again, I am going to show you what we're going to be doing differently for dungeons shortly. So assuming we're in a raid, the main thing we're going to be doing is rejuvenation and getting this up on a lot of people. You can see here it's quite quick, it's quite cheap, and it's quite efficient, and it's a heal over time spell. We should generally put this on people before the damage hits. We are a bit more of a ramp class, meaning we want to ramp up all of our hots or heal over times on our raid before the damage hits. So we can do this really efficiently with rejuvenation. Remember that when we use rejuvenation on a target, we can then use Swiftmend. Instantly heals a friendly target that has an active rejuvenation or regrowth for X amount on a 15-second cooldown. Remember that it would usually actually absorb the rejuvenation or regrowth on them, but because of the glyph we're using, it won't. And when we use this on a player, we're going to get this Effervescence AoE heal for free injured targets in that area. So do be mindful of who you're using your Swiftmend on, and do use it on cooldown, so that you're trying to, kind of use it where there's clustered groups of players. We then have Wild Growth. Use this on cooldown, pretty much. Heals up to 5 friendly party or raid members, prioritizing the most injured party members. Like I said, it's on an 8-second cooldown. Use it on cooldown. Life Bloom. Put this on the tank, generally, or somebody that's going to need a lot of healing. Heals the target for X amount. When it expires or is dispelled, they're instantly healed for another amount. The effect can stack up to 3 times on the same target. Life Bloom can only be active on 1 target at a time, however. And don't forget that when we use like our Healing Touch or our Regrowth or our Nourish, it's actually going to refresh the Life Bloom on that target. Then we've got our direct and single target heals, Nourish, Healing Touch, and Regrowth. Nourish is a sort of filler spell. It's quite slow on a 2.38 cast for me. Heals a friendly target, heals for an additional 20% if they've got a Rejuvenation, Regrowth, Life Bloom, or Wild Growth effect on them. So basically, it's going to do more healing if you've got one of your other heals already on them. And you can use this as like a sort of, just healing a little bit here and there, kind of filler spell. Healing Touch will actually reduce the duration on this spell below it. Let's change these around so we can see. It's going to reduce the cooldown on Nature's Swiftness by 10 seconds. You use this if you need to do a big amount of healing on someone quite quickly. Speaking of Nature's Swiftness then, because Healing Touch reduces the cooldown on it, it's a 3-minute cooldown. When activated, the next nature spell with a base casting time less than 10 seconds, so pretty much all of them, becomes instant cast. If that spell is a healing spell, the amount healed will be increased by 50%. So I can use Nature's Swiftness and then use an instant Healing Touch, for example. When I use Healing Touch, you can see the cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. Lastly, we have Regrowth. This is your really urgent single target heal. You can see it's quite quick and heals a large amount. However, it does cost a lot of mana. If somebody is about to die and you won't have time to get another heal on them, that's when we're going to use our Regrowth. One good thing you can do is use your Nature's Swiftness with Regrowth to get an instant one out, boom, and do tons of healing. And that's pretty much it for the main spells. Let's have a look now at our cooldowns. We have Innovate on a 3-minute cooldown, causing the target to regenerate mana over 10 seconds. If you cast it on yourself, you will regenerate an additional 15% over 10 seconds. Then we have the really intriguing one, Tree of Life. You transform into a Tree of Life like this, and it's going to enhance some of your healing spells. When we use Regrowth, it's going to make it instant cast. Life Bloom can be cast on unlimited targets rather than just one, and Wild Growth will affect an additional 2 targets. When we go into Tree of Life, it increases our overall healing done by 15%, increases our armor by 15%, and protects us from polymorph effects, say we're in PvP. In addition, some of your spells are temporarily enhanced. We've just spoken about it. It lasts 31 seconds, which is a really long time. We've spoken about Nature's Swiftness. Lastly, we have Tranquility, healing 5 nearby lowest party members or raid targets within 40 yards for X amount over 7 seconds, depending on your haste. Tranquility heals for 8,000, stacks up to 3 times. The Druid must channel it, so you have to stand still and channel that spell. But it is a large AoE heal that we can do in times of great need. Lastly, we have a few utility spells. Remove Corruption to dispel magic, curse, and poisons. Fairy Fire, use this if nobody else is. Decreases the armor of the target for 4% for 5 minutes. You can just slap this straight onto the boss. It does stack up to 3 times. And of course, Mark of the Wild, which we're using to buff our party and raid, increasing the friendly target's strength, agility, and stamina, and intellect by 5%. And all magical resistances by 97 for an hour. If you are in a party or raid, all party and raid members will of course be affected. That is pretty much it. Things to remember then is keep up your life bloom. It can stack to 3 times. We can use single target spells to renew it and refresh it. When you use a direct spell, Healing Touch, Nourish, or Regrowth, you will get your mastery. It's not from other spells. It has to be a direct spell. So do be using these at least every 10 seconds to get your Harmony mastery buff, increasing your periodic healing. Use your rejuvenation and then absorb it with a Swift Mend. Try and use this where players are grouped up. You can use your Nature's Swiftness to use, say, an instant regrowth and do massive amounts of healing. Don't forget, Healing Touch is actually going to reduce the cooldown of Nature's Swiftness by 10 seconds. Tree of Life is going to enhance your healing as well as give you more healing. And Tranquility is your big AoE heal. Don't forget to also use your Innovate to get some mana back for a fellow healer or yourself. We're pretty much doing the same thing if we're in dungeons. However, there are a few talents we want to change. I would take a few points out of Moonglow, reducing your mana cost, and I'd put them into Starlight Wrath, reducing the cast time of your Wrath. I would then also put 2 points into Fury of the Storm Rage. This is specifically for dungeons if you have time to do some DPS and don't need to be doing massive amounts of healing. If you still feel your life struggling to do enough healing in dungeons, don't worry about this build. But basically what the Fury of the Storm Rage does is it reduces the mana cost of your Wrath by 100% if you put 2 points in there. When you deal damage with your Wrath, you have a 6% chance to cause your Starfire to be instant cast. TLDR then, we can basically spam Wrath in dungeons for free when using the Fury of the Storm Rage talents. And I would, again, just take 3 out of 3 out of Moonglow and maybe 3 out of 3 in Nature's Grace and put them into Starlight Wrath instead and Fury of the Storm Rage for that one. One other thing you can do in either the raid or dungeon build is take 2 points potentially out of Genesis, maybe Moonglow, it depends, and put them into Furor. Main reason is it increases your maximum mana by 5% per point. It is quite competitive, I would say, of things like Moonglow, which are going to reduce the mana cost of your spells, whereas this is going to increase your mana. So it's kind of a bit of like a, pros and cons with using those, but I just want to highlight them to you as that is a different way that you can play. Hi guys, it's me from the future. I forgot to record this bit of the video, so here it is now in a completely different outfit. Basically, looking at consumables and the gear, etc. we're going to be using, these two above my head are the shoulder and head enchants that you're going to need from Reputation. Guardians of Hyjal, Revered, is going to get you 60 intellect and 35 critical strike, whereas Pharazane gets you intellect and haste on the shoulders. There is a Revered rather than exalted version of this that is blue rather than purple as well. Looking at the gems you're going to want, in your red slot, I would go with the Brilliant Inferno Ruby at 40 intellect. Of course, unless you are a jewel crafter, you will have better one. Reckless Ember Topaz is going to be the yellow slot I would use, giving 20 intellect and haste, and a Purified Demon's Eye giving intellect and spirit is what we're going to be using in the blue slot. For your meta gem, I would go for the Burning Shadow Spirit Diamond, adding intellect and critical effect. The professions are a really interesting one, and generally you can take whatever you want. Each one will have a good bonus, but the two I personally recommend would be tailoring and enchanting. Tailoring increasing your spell power by 295 for 15 seconds when casting a spell. This is a cloak enchant that we can get, and the rings adding 23 spell power onto each ring. The differences between each profession is quite negligible. You could also go for something like alchemy for the mixology buff, increasing how much you get out of your flasks, etc. For your main weapon enchantment, it is going to be Power Torrent. That is the best one. Again, sometimes increasing intellect by 500 for 12 seconds. Lastly, for the consumables, Flask of the Draconic Mind will increase your intellect by 300 for an hour. Volcanic Potion, increasing intellect by 1200 for 25 seconds. Ignore the flame cap, we're not doing fire damage. Severed Sagefish Head, adding intellect and stamina is your food buff, and using mythical healing potions if you really need to. If you are concerned about mana, you could use the mythical mana potion as well, or a potion of concentration where you have to channel your mana, meaning you have to kind of get somewhere safe to use this to get the full effect, but it will give you more than the mythical mana potion will overall. And that is it for how to play Resto Druid in Cataclysm. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you need any more help, please do join my Discord. We've got a really friendly community, and there's no question too big or too small. If you'd like some extra help from me, you can join my Patreon, which opens up a VIP channel in the Discord, which I always check as a priority to help you guys out as a thanks for supporting the channel. I do only do this in my spare time, and a lot of people do use ad blocks these days. So again, signing up for Patreon is the best way of supporting the channel if you would like to make sure I can keep doing these videos for you, and it is greatly, greatly appreciated. There is also written guides I've put on there, along with spreadsheets and other great content that is going to help make your WoW journey even easier. And if you are looking for any other specs or class guides, check out the playlist here, because I've done them all for you, including reputation and tier lists, etc., if you're not sure which class to play.